Right. Thank you for the introduction. And in fact, I think it is the longest title on the agenda, but that wasn't intended. Today, I would like to share with you a few thoughts about the process and the way we work in Oracle Digital Experience team, and to show you how we make use of gamification in enterprise environment. Now, first, I would like to share with you a short story. It's a story about the pirates competing for a treasure and discovering new opportunities along the way. But those are not pirates you could expect like in Jack Sparrow's crew. Those pirates work in a telco company, and most piratish thing they've done so far was probably jaywalking. But still, they enjoy it, as far as I know. And they were given a chance to explore new opportunities and new ways of working within a team, hopefully to get better results, to work faster, to enjoy their work. Now, this is an example of gamification, of a gamified solution we've done recently for one of our clients. But I don't want to brag about it too much, and I don't want to convince you that we've just invented gamification, because that's completely bullshit. What I would like to share with you is, well, how we make it work in an enterprise environment. What can we do with it to achieve better results in UX process? So, 3 thoughts that I will try to cover during this speech. What is gamification? How to work with users' motivation? And what are the challenges of gamification in enterprise apps? Now, I think we should start with defining gamification, and I'm already sorry for that, but I think we should debunk some myths around it. So gamification, the most common definition is that gamification is the use of game design elements within a non-game context. And you will agree with me that it's quite blurry and meaningless definition. So let's try to dig deeper. Now, gamification is not something you can just apply to a solution. It's an approach. It's a way of working. It's something that, in a UX process, will benefit by understanding what we can achieve further. What we can achieve further is, now, to foster human motivation. And that's the important part, because all the process that we will do will end up here. But again, human motivation is not anything simple. Thing is that it perfectly fits UX process. Well, I agree with Nick, who mentioned that we can't apply a user-centric approach to just everything we do. But as long as we're designing for people, we should do it properly. Now, gamification is a tool, a set of tools that can help us here. And if you think about it, game industry, which was mentioned before, perfectly understand this user-centric approach. I think they were the first to talk directly to users, to focus on their feelings, motivations, things they want to or don't want to do. The user/player is at the root of gamification. The player's motivation ultimately drives the outcome. Therefore, understanding the motivation is paramount to gamified systems. Now, with that being said, we've completed the first part, and I'm discreetly introducing you some basic game mechanics, like badges and levels. But badges and levels are not everything in gamification. That's just an add-on. What we will focus on is the user's motivation. So how to work with user's motivation. In a mentioned solution, we created an application that was supposed to decrease, the goal was to decrease the team's workload resulting from amount of unsigned tasks and delays emerging from that. And that's actually not that important in this part. Because what is important, that we started with the basic UX approach, knowing what business wants from us, what is expected outcome, what results should we achieve at the end. But how to get from business objectives to users' motivations. We had a good plan, like probably you all do starting the project, you have a plan. But this plan is mostly focused on the business objectives, right? If you think about it, when you go through from business goals to process, you can then go to tasks and create user goals out of it. But in fact, those users' goals are still business goals, only transferred to users. That's not a proper understanding of it. In slightly extended process, gamified process, we can use several tools to go from user goals to motivation and then use some gamification mechanics to achieve desired outcome. The thing is, how to go from here to here. At this point, we should refer to something called engagement loop. And one of the reasons why games are so powerful is a concept called instinctive reinforcement. Now, anytime you challenge yourself to do something and you achieve that thing, your brain secretes a small dose of dopamine. And combined with this winner effect, it creates a perfect loop of engagement. From trigger through action, engagement, now feedback, motivation. When you loop that, it's perpetuum mobile. It should work constantly, right? Now, this part fits perfectly into what we already know. We use proto-personas, we try to understand our users better. Gamification also does that, also with few add-ons. Now, you know the goals, aspirations, pain points. That's typical for UX process. But here, we also should focus on something called motivation. To do that, there are several ways. We can ask several types of questions. But we need to focus on drives for motivation. Now, I know that it probably doesn't mean much for you right now, but when we skip to the next slide, we have something like this. That's a basic tool in Gamification Toolkit. It enables us to understand better what we're working with. I showed you proto-persona. Then I should also mention that in a gamification process, you need to start with that. I know that, well, in many cases, we skip to personas, and we're trying to understand our users. We're asking them, we're going to reviews, we're trying to create the proper persona. But here, we need to start with some assumptions. Because one important note, if you don't have any of those user types, such as socializers, achievers, explorers, you won't have a proper gamification. While knowing that enables us to create immediate users, to influence the users to belong to one of these parts. We won't create artificial users. We just want to discover the proper motivation. By the way, it's not something that's out of a thin air. The gamification has a strong background in behavioral theories. So all those tools are just simplified to match our UX process. Now, the interesting thing is, according to Barto's topology, in each gamified environment, we should have more or less typical distribution of player types, of user types. And it gives us a good knowledge of what we can do. Who should we talk with? Barto says that around 80% of users in a gamified solution are socializers. That means those are people motivated by relatedness, people that needs to relate to a group, people that needs to feel that they belong. They want to highly collaborate. That's a perfect user for us, in any case, right? But in our solution, in our case, after a few weeks, we've validated the results, and we learned that the players' user distribution looks more or less like this. It's definitely not similar to what Bartel said. instead of a huge group of socializers, we learned that there is a huge group of disruptors. So what has happened there? Now, the trick is that gamification in the work environment is slightly different than building a gamified solution directly for the users in B2C environment. We encounter specific problems that start with non-voluntary character of the solution. That leads to emerging group of improvers and destroyers, and the result, we need to face the problem of outplaying the game. And I don't need to tell you that here one leads to another. For most of our users, gamified solution can be either a game or a work tool. It can be both at a time. We only have a small overlapping area that gives us a space for a specific context, for social interactions, cooperation, team competition, personal development, and so on. In those areas, gamification, it's not that it fits perfectly. Users expect the gamification to appear there. The trick, again, is the voluntary attempt. We need to be aware that our users, when they are given a game, a gamified solution, when they see a game, something that behaves like a game, that looks like a game, they expect it to be a game with everything further. And if we take one element of the equation, it raises a series of questions. Because if it's not a game, then what is it? Is it a work tool? Should I be worried about? Would it influence my salary? How should I approach this? What's in it for me? And in the result, we need to deal with disruptors. Disruptors can be either good or bad. It doesn't mean that they ruin our system. They can help us if we deal with them properly, or they can break us. Now, this highly depends on us. Important part is to remember that they will appear, regardless of what we do. In the enterprise environment, the non-voluntary character will result with something like this. To give you an example, in our solution, we've created a perfect process for creating a task. It was a process based on the company policy. It has several stages of confirmation. We've taken into account everything that should be there. And at first, we were quite happy seeing the results, because the time on task was decreasing rapidly. Number of tasks was increasing, experience points, so the engagement of the users also was in a good way. But something strange happens here, because from a day, the time decreased to a couple of hours. So we started to ask questions, and we found out that our users decided to outplay us. And instead of using the app like it was designed, they just skipped the app. They went to their colleagues, their peers, asked for help, and just assigned them points later. Well, we were pretty sure that we've done everything to prevent that. But people are creative. And since we need to deal with a huge group of them, it wasn't an easy solution to do. Instead of fighting with them, we've just followed them. And we dropped off the idea of complex tasks. We just added a simple option to gratify your peer, just to assign point afterwards. As easy as that. When you listen to your users, you can achieve much more, because gamification enterprise is not about transforming the workplace. It's not about creating a game in a workplace. It's helping people to succeed in their job, in what they have to do. And in the result, we've learned that around half of our users found this part of the application, this exact solution, most appealing part of the app. So, to sum up, when you create a gamified solution in the enterprise, you need to be aware of your users and be clear about your goals and intentions. You need to clearly communicate what the solution is for and what you want to achieve at the end. You need to value users' time. And remember that what you create is an add-on. It's something that needs to help them, not creating an additional work. You need to put user goals first over business goals, and that's a hard thing to do in an enterprise environment. But still, we're there to make sure that users want to use the app, that it is for them. And last but not least, you need to remember about the feedback. Because once you deal with all those disruptors, you need to give them a way of communicating with you. And I'm pretty sure they will use it. So gamification allows to ask the right questions. But ultimately, experienced designers, UXers, we need to answer those questions in a sophisticated and empathic way. Now, what about the story in the gamification? Does all gamified solutions need to have this theme and be pirate-ish, or do they need that? Does it need to have a meaningful story? So for the time being, I will leave you to decide. And if you have any questions further, feel free to catch me during the breaks. I'll be more than happy to tell you more about gamification and how we can apply that in the enterprise environment. Thank you.
I have to say, as someone who works in the games industry, this was a talk made for me, and I think it kind of threw up one question, which I was really interested in. We, in the games industry, really struggle with claims of creating addictive technologies, manipulating our users. So how do you avoid kind of accidentally doing that, and then also people who think that that's what you're trying to do?
That's a very important question, because it leads us to motivation of users. Basically, we can't do anything against our users. If they don't want to do it, we can't force them. That's not what gamification is for. I mean, we can influence their behavior. We can try to fit there and make it more meaningful. We can create engagement loop out of it, but we can't create the motivation out of thin air. If there's nothing there, we can't work with it, right? I've mentioned that you need at least one of the three player types, user types in your solution to work with them. If there's none of them, there's no gamified solution.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. You're our finance speaker. I have to say that was a brilliant way to round out our first session. Please give me a huge round of applause for Michal Dorosz. Thank you so much.